Morning, everyone. Week 14, fantasy football, NFL. Let's get ready to talk some lineup questions here, gambling questions, anything you got here. We're going to get kicked off right here. Johnny Football, Cam Newton or Taysom Hill. It's an interesting one. Both have big rushing floors. I am actually going to lean Cam Newton here. I don't pay any credence to him being benched again. Don't think that's going to happen. They're playing Atlanta. Atlanta's horrible against the run in the pass. They switched their offensive coordinators. They want to be a run-based team, which means Newton's going to be piloting the offense heavily on the run, and then they probably get more bodies in the box because of that, and then he can actually strike down to DJ Moore. But Taysom Hill, of course, we saw a ton of points in a 4-interception game. But I think with Alvin Kamara back and they're playing the Jets, I think Kamara could just basically handle this game. And if he does, Hill may not have to do a lot, and he may not be asked to run as much. He may run some, but I think his volume could be lower. And if the Saints get out to a lead, they may just lean on their traditional running attack to get Ryan Ramczyk back. So I think Newton is the play here. They both have upside because if the game script goes in the way it needs to go, either could go off. I just think Newton in his scenario, he'll be called upon as a centerpiece of the offense. And so they're going to need him more. That's why I lean him. Johnny, Brandon Cooks or Jarvis Landry. If Cooks is cleared to go, Davis Mills has put up yardage. He's had tough matchups. He had one bad game, but he's at like 240 yards in like 4 or 5 starts or something like that. And so if Cooks is able to play, it'll be a low volume play game, but Cooks is going to get love there, and his matchup is good. He has nothing to worry about from perspective there. So Jarvis Landry is a fine play as it is, but I think his floor is as low as Cooks, because if they do get the running game going, which we hope they do for their sake, we're not sure. I think Brandon Cooks does have some ceiling this week against Seattle. I'm going to take a couple questions here from Insta, and so you won't see those on the YouTube and Twitter stream. So we got fantasy hockey pucks. St. Brown, Hasty, or Keelan Cole for a second flex. Hasty will be mixed in. I do think it's the kind of game against Cincinnati where they're going to need both backs to a degree. St. Brown, it's interesting because they're decimated with injuries. Hawkinson's doubtful. The 2 running backs are out. I think that they're playing Denver, and so there shouldn't be a ton of pressure on the quarterback. So I don't know if he needs to dump it off to the slot receiver so much here. I think he could actually throw more to Josh Reynolds here and Khalif Raymond. They could be more targeted. St. Brown tends to be the guy when they got to check down a lot. So I think Hasty, Keelan Cole's a tough one because they're playing New Orleans. And New Orleans is an excellent defense, and they haven't gotten a lot of pressure. And I know that Elijah Moore and, oh my God, Corey Davis are out. I know that. But at the end of the day, I still think Keelan Cole's going to be potentially outmatched here. And that's what worries me. And Zach Wilson, I don't trust him much at all. I'm going to say Hasty's your safest play, but St. Brown actually has a little more upside because if for some reason they target the slot, he could see 7 catches. I don't think that happens, but that would be your floor ceiling play, and Hasty be your safe play. P. Shen, and again, these couple Insta questions. You guys on YouTube and Twitter won't see these just now. Singletary or Abdullah? You know what? Abdullah should be mixed in. They like him. They want to use him. I think he is a part of the game against Atlanta here. Singletary, you know what? I just don't know against Tampa. You can't run on them until it's late in the game. Then they back off and they let you run. And I still think I'm holding back to my guns that Breed is going to be a part of this thing because they couldn't get anything done with Singletary and Moss. I'm going to say Abdullah here because, all right, let's go this way. If you want, make sure you get 5 points. Singletary gets you 5 points probably gets you 5. Not much more, probably 5. Abdullah could go 2. He could go 10. So I think Abdullah has more upside. So I would play it that way. All right. I am going to go back to Twitter and YouTube and then come back to Insta in a minute. All right. So let's see here. We've got Robert. All right, man. You got one full PPR. Dante Foreman, Jeff Wilson, or a Detroit running back. All right. So when we look at this one, I expect the Titans play with the lead here. If the Titans play with the lead, then I think Foreman is in a great spot. And so that is why I like Dante Foreman. He's the lead back. Jacksonville was very good against the run. They've fallen off the last few weeks. They can be had. And Tennessee blocks up the run pretty well. So I like him there. Jeff Wilson's going to split work. Now, so is Dante Foreman. But Cincinnati is going to be a little tougher for him to navigate, I think. And I think Hasty could get, a part of the situation there. The Detroit running backs, I don't know how to shake it out because Jamar Jefferson's in there, and my brain is just blanking. Godwin Igwe. Sorry about that. So I'm not quite sure. And they're injured all over the place. They're missing a center. They're missing other skill position players. So I'm going to say Deontay Foreman's your safest play here, and I think he has the same upside as Wilson. So I would go that route. Jay Red, Burrow or Russ Wilson in Seattle. All right. So Burrow's finger is supposedly fine. San Francisco, who's been decimated in the secondary, they're down 2 more corners, one out for personal reasons, and then Emmanuel Mosley got hurt last week, so he's out. And you can't run on San Francisco. They're top 3 run defense. I imagine Cincinnati has to throw. And with the 3 weapons they have, they should be fine. I got to say Burrow. I don't think Russ Wilson has to throw much here because they should play with the lead against Houston, and we know Pete Carroll wants to run the ball. So I think Burrow for me. And then Seattle defense or the Chargers. Chargers are playing Mike Lennon. They're at home. They really don't have a home field advantage. They don't even get that many fans out there but that's either here nor there. Seattle's on the road. Davis Mills has gotten it done in 4 to 5 games he's played. So you know what? I'm going to say Chargers because Mike Lennon has a bigger chance of employing. Davis Mills, his numbers have actually not been horrible. I think Tyrod Taylor's been worse. So that's why I go there. Take another question here. CB, need 3. Chubb, Zeke, Robinson, Patterson, or Freeman? Yeah, I know Zeke's playing hurt, and they're playing Washington. It's a very, very tough run defense. Zeke hasn't gotten much yardage at all lately. Chubb flamed out against Baltimore, and they're going to sell out to stop him again, but he's Nick Chubb, and I assume if they lean on him, they're missing 2 tight ends, they're missing a right tackle, so they can't even use the heavy personnel sets that they lean on regularly. James Robinson, Tennessee probably plays with a lead here. Now, Robinson can catch the ball a bit, and Tennessee is middle of the road against receiving backs, so he's a reasonable play there. I think you got to play Patterson. Freeman's got like 60 yards plus a game. I think Zeke is safer than Freeman, though. So I'm going to go Chubb because he could break a big run anytime. If you sit him and he goes over 30 points, you're going to kick yourself. So you got to go Chubb, Patterson. And then the third one, I'm going to frame it this way. Zeke has a solid floor. You could count on a solid floor, but he's not going to probably have a big ceiling game. So if you need a ceiling from your third guy, I think Robinson could catch passes and he could pile up that way. There's downside too. So it would be Chubb, Patterson, and Zeke. But if you want upside to risk some downside, I would take out Zeke and put Robinson in. Freeman just doesn't have the ceiling, I don't think. And then if he floors out, it wouldn't be good. A couple Insta questions here, guys, and I'll come back. So let's see here. We've got, all right, Hodgins Nathan, Guyton or DJ? I think you mean David Johnson. I hope you mean David Johnson. So Mike Williams is probably going to see a lot of James Bradbury, which tells me Guyton will have a little easier matchup. Dante Jackson's out at the other corner. So I think that matchup is easier, and they're going to have to throw downfield a bit. So I'm going to say Guyton here because I think his situation matches up well with the injuries and Keenan Allen being out and Guyton being an outside receiver and the matchup with Bradbury. I think that works that way. And then we got Singletary or Jeff Wilson Jr. I got to say Jeff Wilson. He'll get the lead role here. He'll split work with Hasty. Singletary hasn't done much at all, and this matchup against the Bucs is a nightmare. You can't run on them until late in the game, and they're leading, and then they take their foot off and they let you run. But by that point, this game is close all the way. They're not going to run on them at all. So, and they're a terrible run blocking unit. So I'm going to say Jeff Wilson there. One more Insta question, flex spot. Mooney, Sutton, Penny, or Collins? Yeah, Penny and Collins will split work. Penny has higher upside, I think, because he's more explosive, even despite the injuries. Collins has just been 3 yards in a cloud of dust for his last 5 games that he's played. Penny has a lot of floor. My God, he could get hurt, right? He plays. He seems to get hurt as soon as he gets hit. But Sutton, they just haven't been throwing him the ball. And they could this week, but I think that Denver plays with a lead. They don't have to. I think they could run the ball all day on Detroit. That's decimated on offense. They have COVID going through their team. So I think Mooney's the guy. I don't like the matchup against Green Bay, but he's going to get targets. And I like that Allen Robinson's back because at least Robinson, defense have to account for Allen Robinson. And I think that gives Mooney a little more space to operate. So I'm going to say Mooney there. That's the route I'll go. And does Sony Michel play Monday night? right now, it sounds like they would have put him on the close contact list. If anybody sees breaking news this morning that I haven't seen since that came out in the last 15, 20 minutes, that'd be great. So, but right now, I'd say Sony goes. If not, you know what you do? You pick up, I can think of the backup's name now, Mekhi Sargent. Pick up Mekhi Sargent. And if Mekhi Sargent's there, they don't have anybody else. So he'll get 15 carries, and he'll get you something. So, yeah, pick up Mekhi Sargent. And if Michelle doesn't play, there's your backup plan. All right. One more instant question. I'm coming back to YouTube and Twitter, guys. Locket or Renfro? So Houston's been terrible against wide receiver twos. They're like 27th. And Lockett's been getting it done for the last 5 games. So he's in a good spot. However, Houston's like a top 11 pressure rate team. And right tackle Brandon Shell is out for Seattle. So that's a little bit worrisome there. And so Renfro, however, he's in the slot. He gets it done. But Kansas City's been really tough on receivers. And if he's running the slot, there could be a chance where even the Honey Badgers on him at times, making it a tougher matchup. But that said, Renfro has a safer floor. He's going to catch 5 passes. So you're going to get that. But I don't think this week Renfro has a ceiling game. I don't think that's there the way Kansas City's been playing lately. So I think Lockett is your guy. If you need 15 points, Lockett's your guy. If you need 9 and you're safe floor 7, 9, 6 to 9, Renfro's your guy. But the boom bust would be Lockett there. All right, I got to come back. I'll come back inside. We'll come back. I got to go back to YouTube and Twitter now. All right, see what we got here. Conan, you need either James Robinson or Saquon. Yeah, you didn't think that question would be asked early in the season, but it's a great question. Now, Saquon's not getting it done. Now, we know that the Chargers are the worst run defense in the league. Doesn't mean much to Saquon because he's not getting it done. Now, he got a lot of dump-off passes last week. He got 5 dump-off passes, I think, in the last drive of the game to pad his PPR numbers. So that helped him out a little bit. Now, this week, he's facing the Chargers, who are number 7 against receiving back. So that's not a good receiving back game here. I think Robinson is safer, and I think Robinson has similar upsides. I don't think Barkley has upside right now. He hasn't had a game since he's been back from injury that has been like, oh, wow, Saquon's back. I don't see it. So I think James Robinson has a similar floor, but I think he has more ceiling. So believe it or not, I'm going to say James Robinson here. Reynolds or Beasley, PPR. Beasley has not been getting it done. The offense has been largely figured out in a lot of ways. And I can't even say Beasley doesn't even have the safe floor right now because he has a lot of games under 30 yards recently. So Josh Reynolds is getting ball. And the matchup against Denver, it's not that imposing. I think that Reynolds gets enough targets. They're going to trail. They're going to have to throw. And Reynolds is showing decent rapport with Goff. I'm going to say Reynolds here. Brian, all right, good year. Man, I appreciate that. Happy holidays to you as well. Thank you. All right, Tony Pollard out as expected. Pick up Corey Clement. If anybody needs a deep flex, Corey Clement. Rico Dowdle's on the IR. Zeke's not 100%. Clement is going to touch the ball. He'll see probably some receiving work. I picked up Clement a couple days ago when I heard that the torn plantar fascia for Pollard was there. I didn't think he'd play, so I picked him up anywhere I could. He's deep. I'm in a lot of deep leagues, so there's like nothing on the free agency wire. But if you need somebody, Corey Clement's not a bad flex play today, so definitely consider that. And I'm not prognosticating this, but Pollard could end up on the short-term IR. And I think if they ruled him out today, I think it'd be 3 games after that. Now, maybe he's back next week. But that Clement's a good stash because if they decide to sit Zeke with his knee, all of a sudden you could be Clement running behind that Dallas line and no stack boxes because of the receiving game. Laura and Jim Cooperman need 2 receivers and a flex in a PPR. Sutton, Westbrook, Akine, Allen Robinson, Chenault, Schultz, or Hilliard. 2 and a flex. I said earlier, Sutton's not getting the ball a lot, but this matchup is at least easy. Not going to be much of a passer, so Teddy's not going to be under duress. He can get it downfield. My guess is they'll get him some targets. I think this is a week where you would give Sutton a whirl with your situation. In tougher situations where you have guys that are as talented, I think we look at it differently, but Sutton, I think, gets in there. I think Tennessee's going to lead, and so I think they're not going to have to throw a ton here, and Julio Jones is back, and they're getting a lot. Their tight end came back last week last game from the concussion. So, but I can't start Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson hasn't done anything. Chenault gets you that 3 for 30. Dalton Schultz What worries me there is now that the receivers are all there, his targets are going to dry up. So, all right, let's just break this down to the end. Sutton's got to go in. I don't think Hilliard's going to get much because Jerry McNichols is back, and if they lead, they don't need a pass catching back. So I'm going to say Schultz. We got to go Schultz. He could get you a touchdown. That'd be your flex. And then your second receiver, reluctantly, Westbrook-Akine. Because Chenault doesn't have any ceiling. A-Rob doesn't have a floor or a ceiling. At least Westbrook-Akine is getting some looks. So I think that's what we got. That's a tough one, man. That's a real tough one. I'm going to get a couple Insta questions here, then I'll come back to YouTube and Twitter. All right, let's see. Make sure I get this right here. Jason, A.J. Green or Allen Robinson. So A.J. Green's a good matchup here because the outside receivers do fairly well against the Rams. They play Jalen Ramsey in the slot an awful lot, and the outside attention would go to DeAndre Hopkins, and they're going to have to score some points. They're not easy to run on. So I think A.J. Green gets the 6 targets here, and I think he cashes in on them. I think he gets you 50 yards here. And I don't think Allen Robinson, he hasn't really sniffed 50 yards much this year. And so I think we go A.J. Green here. Robinson coming back off the injury, not quite sure how he's moving, and Green Bay's a great pass defense. So I'm going to go that route. And then Hodges, Nathan, you asked me Guyton or David Johnson earlier. I think I've seen this again, but we want Guyton, because I expect Mike Williams to have James Bradbury. The other outside receiver is going to have a much easier draw. Dante Jackson is out the corner. So I think Guyton's your guy there. And then Jashalu, MVS or Mooney. MVS has targets in the last 2 games, right? He's got like 10-7 or 10-9 or something like that. Targets have been up there quite a bit. I still think those could be very, very fickle, and they could go away at any time, but they're there right now. I still see him as more volatile, though. I think MVS is just your volatile player. Now, 2 weeks is kind of hard to say. It's a trend. Mooney, though, last week, he still got like 7 PPR points in a wind rainstorm. It's horrible weather, and he still came through. And I know Green Bay's a tough pasty, but Mooney's just like an emerging star, and they're going to get him the ball. So I think Mooney's safer. Mooney is safer. You want to make sure you have a solid floor with some ceiling. It's Mooney. If you can risk a low floor, a 3-game for you need 100 plus yards and a touchdown, then I think MVS is your swing for defense play. But I probably start Mooney because of the safety. But if you really got to swing for defense, then I go MVS. Jimmy B8320 is, well, right now Sony Michel is safe, but you could pick up Mekhi Sargent on waivers. He's the running back that would step in. They don't have anybody else, so that would at least back you up. But as of right now, if there's no news that comes out, my guess is he'd have to be on the close contact list already. Another Insta question here: Hooper or Fant? Yeah, PNLB. I got this one earlier from someone else. You know what? Hooper, with 2 other tight ends out, he probably gets more targets than Fant. I think Hooper has a better floor. So I think you play him for floor. But if you need 12 points out of your tight end, Fant may not get there, but he has a chance of getting there because they have an easy matchup finally. Now, they may run the ball all day. So Hooper's safe. He'll get you 5 points, which isn't bad, tight end. But Fant could be the one that gets you more. So if you want just a bankable few points, have something in the hopper so you know you're competing, that's the way to go. If you need some upside, any upside, I think you got to go Fant. Baltimore isn't great against the tight end, so Hooper would have a chance, but I don't think they're going to feature him. I think they're going to look to Donovan Peoples-Jones downfield. I think Jarvis Landry takes a lot of the underneath stuff, but Hooper will get something for you. All right. Xanthaman, Michel or Jacobs. The assumption is Michel is not on the close contact list and he's supposed to play. That's the assumption. So Michel's a good play, but you know what? Josh Jacobs, though, they're playing the Chiefs, and they have nobody else receiving the ball. Richard's on the COVID list. I don't believe he came off, and we know Drake's gone. Jacobs isn't doing much of the targets, but he's catching all these passes. I think Jacobs at this point is much, much safer. So I think because if something goes down with Michel and then you're left holding the bag for Monday night, I don't think you want to be there. So I think you plug in Jacobs now, and you got the points, and you're there. And then if something stupid happens with Michel with the COVID and the close kind, and they come down late with it or he tests positive, then you don't have to worry about it so much. Jimmy B, Michel or Guyton? Well, it's kind of the same thing. It's Guyton. Michel's a much better play. But if you're worried at all that this COVID thing could go down, you can't add Mekhi. And both of you guys, if you could add Mekhi Sargent, then you play Michel. Well, but back to Xanthaman. I think Josh, you're saying with Josh Jacobs because he's getting a ton of targets. You can't go away from that. But Jimmy B. So if you can add Mekhi Sargent, then you play Michelle, and then if Michelle gets deactivated because of COVID, then you could go with Mekhi Sargent. So I play him over Guyton because Guyton at the end of the day is not safe. All right, let's see here. All right, I'm going to come back to YouTube and Twitter here. All right, see what we got here. Alfonso, Alex Collins or Jamar Jefferson in a flex. So Alex Collins will split with Rashad Penny today. Alex Collins has pretty much been like 35 yards. He's 35 yards. He has like no receptions. He hasn't found the end zone. Now they're playing Houston. They could find this week. If Rashad Penny gets hot, possible. Penny's going to walk right in front of him because Pete Carroll loves him some Rashad Penny. Now Jamar Jefferson, it's tough as well though. They're playing Denver. And Godwin Igwebuike may see more receiving work than Jefferson. It's tough to call that, but what I've seen, it may be Igwebuike that sees some receiving work. They both can. But Jamar Jefferson looks like a good runner. So ultimately, though, I think Jamar Jefferson sees more work than Alex Collins here. And Alex Collins has too much downside because of Penny being involved. So I'm going to say Jamar Jefferson here because I think, especially that game gets into garbage time, I think they'll have. They're not going to throw in garbage time. I think they have no help for Goff, so I think they're going to lean. They're just going to run even if they're losing. So I'm going to say that's the way to go. Scott, Hooper or Fant. So I was talking about this a minute ago, and somebody else asked the same question. I think Hooper is your floor guy. He's only going to get you 5 or 6 points probably. He could score anytime, but really he's your floor guy. Baltimore's not good against tight ends, but I think that Landry's involved. They're going to throw Donovan Peoples-Jones. They're going to try to run. Fant has more upside. But if you want some safe points, Hooper's your guy because Fant's only getting a few targets a game, and they might not need him here. They might run the ball. But Fant is the one guy, if you get him a ball in space, he could get a 60-yard touchdown. And against his defense, that really could happen. So if you're swinging a little more for defense, it's Fant. And, Hooper's not a guarantee for anything either. I know they're down they're 2 of their top 3 tight ends. I get that. So, but I think Hooper has a 5-point floor. I think he has that. So that's the way we frame that one. And then, Scott, you got another one. Crowder or Gage? Well, right now, Gage, 4 of the last 5 games, he's been good. Now, on the season, he got 3 goose eggs. Those are always going to be there. Those goose eggs will always be there for him. But he's playing well lately. And Carolina has some names at corner. They keep losing corners, but they have names there. They have the A.J. Boye's there and Stephon Gilmore. And that tells me, though, even though they're names, they're still okay. And I think this is a game where Gage is outmatched. I don't think Gage against those guys can get by on Guile and Savvy because that's all he has. He's not a good player. He gets by on Guile and Savvy. And I don't think he can do that with the corners they have. So Crowder is a low floor, yes, but he has a higher floor than Gage, who has the goose eggs. So I'm going to say Crowder here, and I don't think Gage has a lot of upside. I don't think this one has that way. And Robert, streaming a defense, Broncos, Panthers, Chiefs, or Chargers. I probably like the Broncos here. Lions are down to center. They're down their top 2 running backs. TJ Hawkinson. If anybody finds out if he's out, for sure, let me know. But he was doubtful. I don't expect him to play. I think there's a week where the Broncos can come up with something on Jared Goff. So I like the Broncos here. And I think that they're at home. That helps a lot too. So I think I would go with them for sure. And then Scott, you got Jamar Jefferson, Guyton, or Gallup. To me, Gallup's the safest of the 3. Big part of the 3 receiver set. They run those frequently with Zeke hurt, Pollard out. Washington's a pass funnel. My guess is that, and you could burn them deep. So Gallup only needs like one big play to kind of cash. I like Guyton, but I don't love Guyton because we're not sure he's going to get many targets. They could decide to go to Austin Eckler in lieu of Keenan Allen being out and just dump it to him a lot too. So, and ultimately, Giants aren't terrible at pressure. Jamar Jefferson is a real question mark. We don't quite know what we're getting here. Godwin Igwebuike will be involved as well. They even said there's a third guy they might involve. I think Michael Gallup. To me, it's Michael Gallup. I'm going to bet on the talented guy, the guy in the good offense, in a game that's a get-right passing game. All right, instant questions. Jason, I think you asked this one already. Let me tell you, Allen Robinson or A.J. Green. I said A.J. Green on that one. I think they play Jalen Ramsey in the slot a lot, and then the outside receiver, they got to worry about DeAndre Hopkins. I think Green gets 6 targets he produces. Robinson hasn't done anything, so I'm kind of backing off on him. And Absoloria, 38, Mike Williams or Scary Terry. Mike Williams is going to draw James Bradbury most likely full-time. And I think Mike Williams can get a little bit of him on some 50-50 balls. But James Bradbury is a bigger corner. He's an outstanding corner. And I think the Chargers will throw it up to Mike Williams a bit. Terry McLaurin has not had great games lately. My guess is that Dallas could get out to a lead. And Washington's been keeping games close. They haven't had to throw. If they have to throw here, I think Terry McLaurin gets it done. I think, Dallas is number one against wide receiver ones, and I get that. But Terry McLaurin he can burn you in so many different ways, burn defense. You can go underneath, you can go intermediate, you can go deep. And at the end of the day, I think Terry McLaurin's matchup is way better than Mike Williams, and I think the part they trail is a big deal. Josh Lou, you asked me earlier, I think maybe I'm just receiving these questions. MVS or Mooney? Mooney for safety, I trust him much more. MVS, even though he's had a lot of targets in the last 2 games, I still think he's a boom bust play. So if you got to swing for the fence, MVS could get that long touchdown for you. But otherwise, I think Mooney's a pretty safe play against a tough defense, but he's really emerged. Peter Knapp, Carr or Wilson? Kansas City's really playing well. And Carr, if you look at his numbers in the last 4 games, he's horrible. I don't think it's turning around. And they're going to get some pressure. They had Melvin Ingram. They're really good at pressure now, and that's when Carr is terrible. So Wilson doesn't have a bad matchup. They might run a lot because they're going to be winning, but I think Wilson still gets a couple touchdowns here. I think he gets you 220 and a couple touchdowns. So I'm going to say Wilson has a higher floor, though. That's the biggest deal. Wilson has a higher floor. Could Carr go off? Yes, it could happen. But I think he's more likely to have another floor game like he's been having recently, whereas Wilson at least has been putting up a better floor the last couple of weeks, and that's the way we go. And I'll do another Insta question before I pop back to Twitter and YouTube. David Montgomery or DJ Moore? I got to go David Montgomery here. Montgomery is playing a Green Bay defense that's bottom 5 against the running backs, and they're bottom 5 against receiving backs, and Montgomery plays about 80% of the snaps. That tells me he has a really high floor. I love DJ Moore this week. I think he's going to do well, but David Montgomery has a great floor, and DJ Moore has a low floor because if Cam can't get him the ball, he's gotten to him the last 2 games, 5 for 50, and then he had that long pass, and he got him to 100 yards, I think, in the last game. But it's been a little fluky. Love DJ Moore. But I think you got to go David Montgomery for the safe floor, and he has an equivalent ceiling to DJ Moore. So David Montgomery's the play there. All right, get back to Twitter and YouTube here. All right, Guy, you've got Chargers or Carolina defense. Yeah, it's a tough one as well. Mike Glennon's playing quarterback for the Giants, and Chargers are at home. Does a cross-country road trip for the Giants. And the Chargers have been getting some pressure, and the offensive line of the Giants not very good. So I'm going to go with the Chargers for that reason. Hey, Randy, good to see you. You need a flex, non-PPR. Dillon, Chuba, or Hasty. I got to go Dillon here. My guess is Green Bay plays with a lead. They're big, heavy favorites too, and they've been getting him very involved. They're splitting the work with him and Aaron Jones. And the Bears are not stout as they used to be against the run, and I think especially Green Bay at home, they can run the ball a bit more. Chuba, I think he's going to split a lot with Amir Abdullah. I think Amir Abdullah is going to be way more involved than people think, so that scares me off. And Cam Newton running the ball, that scares me even more because it's not like, earlier in the year with Sam Darnold, even though Darnold ran, you're going to hand it off. I think Cam is like going to do great option and look to take it himself. He wants that rushing production. So, and Hasty's, he's going to be like the 30% wheel, like 35% snap share. So, and I think that he won't be as efficient with his touches as Dillon will with his. So I'm going to say, especially non-PPR, I'm going to say you got to go Dillon there. CEH or McLaurin, it's for Evan. CEH is a great matchup. The Raiders are missing their middle linebacker and the 2 backups are on injured reserve. And that's a huge position against the run. And Daryl Williams went for like 140 total yards against them in, was it week 10 or something like that? And now Edwards-Helaire is back and he plays. Obviously Williams still mixed in, but Edwards-Helaire could have a monster game here. I think he has a great floor this week. And that's the thing with McLaurin. McLaurin has a ceiling, but McLaurin has a floor. Dallas, we said earlier, is number 1 against wide receiver ones. And Dallas is going to get pressure. They got Randy Gregory back. DeMarcus Lawrence is now a week healthier. And there could be a lot of pressure on the quarterback. So there may not be the developing plays. So, but here's what I'll tell you. Edwards-Helaire is your safe play. You put him in, you need those safe 10, 12 points. If you need to risk a possible 5 for a 20, McLaurin's that guy. If you got to risk because of your matchup says, I need a ton of points, then McLaurin's your guy. Otherwise, I go to Edwards-Helaire, I bank those points, and I rest comfortably, even if McLaurin has a good game. CB, you need 2, Renfro, Evans, DK, or Higgins. Evans is a great matchup here. Tre'Davious White's out. They have no answer for him on the outside. And I imagine, and they talk about the Bills having a pass rush. Somebody's citing somewhere they're the number 1 pass rush pressure rate. At Pro Football Focus, I know they're not the gospel or anything, but they've got them more like middle of the pack. And that's what I see it when I watch them play. That pressure rate ain't scaring me at all. They played some bad opponents. So Mike Evans for me, easy. And you know what, T. Higgins, that ankle, they said at the beginning, he got back in the game last week. They said he'd miss practice time. They said he'd be playing. He is. He's on fire. With San Francisco, they're down a whole bunch of corners here. To me, it's Evans and Higgins. I can't trust DK right now. Could he get an 80-yard touchdown today? Yep, absolutely could. Totally could. But the last 5 weeks, he has a 60-yard game, and everything else has been way below that. And they might have to throw a lot in this game against Houston. And Houston's really good against wide receiver ones. So, and Renfro has a bad matchup this week. I don't like the matchup against Kansas City. They're playing phenomenally over the last month. And Renfro's a guy they're actually going to look at. So Evans and Higgins for me. If you decide if you personally see a big DK game coming, you bench Higgins for him. That's fine. Because if you think that's DK's going to get 2 long touchdowns, he could. And if that's the route you go, otherwise Evans and Higgins for me on that one. Osman, I hope it's your name right. It could be Osman, Osman, I'm sorry. Ty Johnson or Daryl Williams on KC. Well, Tevin Coleman's out. That works for Ty Johnson. I don't know why he wasn't getting work. Oh, he was getting all this work when Michael Carter was around. And then Michael Carter gets hurt, and then Ty Johnson's also on the bench. Didn't make sense. They got to go to him now. So I say Ty Johnson. Daryl Williams, he looked good last week, and he obviously had the lead back game against the Raiders in Week 10. He killed them, but I think Ty Johnson's safer. I think, and they're going to they're going to probably trail a lot in this game against New Orleans, so they're going to have to throw to him. And New Orleans at least isn't lights out against receiving backs. They're top 10. They're number 10, but you can at least get to him as a receiver. And I think Ty Johnson catches 4 or 5, maybe even 6 passes in the dump off game, so that's why I like him better. Now Johnson doesn't have a ceiling here. So if you say, so Ty Johnson's going to get you, 7, 8 points, and you should get you that. If you need 12 or 14 because you think your matchup is oppressive, then you take the chance on Williams because he could get in the mix at the goal. That could happen. So, but otherwise it's Ty Johnson. All right, we got a couple questions from Insta here, and then you guys won't see those on the Twitter, YouTube question. Josh Alou, best defensive special teams, the Titans, the 49ers, the Ravens, or the Browns? I do like the Browns at home. Lamar's been turning the ball over a lot. That's been a big deal. Ravens on the road, and they're beat up. No Marlon Humphrey. That gets me real nervous at that defense. That defense is not good. They're not playing well. And I think the Browns, with that week to prepare, having played them 2 weeks ago and the bye week, I think they're going to be at least game planned up well for them. 49ers don't get enough pressure. That's the problem. They had a TD a couple weeks back, but Cincinnati's not probably a team they can exploit. I do like the Titans here. I think the Titans come up pretty strong here. It's a big game for them. They have to pile up the wins, hoping that Derrick Henry's back for the place. They're playing Jacksonville. They're at home. A lot of turmoil in Jacksonville right now. The quarterback Trevor Lawrence hasn't been very good. I'm going to go Titans there. Mr. Elmac or IMAC, Stafford or Taysom Hill. Appreciate the nice comment there. So, all right, Taysom Hill, we say, is the floor play because he could get you 70, 80 yards on the ground. I am a little concerned with Alvin Kamara back against the Jets. He could take the game over, and Hill may not have the rushing floor he normally has. It may be a game that's so easy for Kamara that's fine. Stafford has a tough matchup. Now, he's going to get you 260 and 2 touchdowns. He's going to get that. No matter how bad the matchup is, Stafford's going to get that for you. So here's what I'll tell you. Stafford this week, and I normally said it's the opposite way. Stafford's your floor play this week. Stafford is going to get you 15 to 20 points, and you're going to be good with that. Taysom Hill this week, to me, is boom bust. There's a possibility that if Alvin Kamara doesn't get going, then Hill could go off. But I think there's a lot of outs here where Hill doesn't have to run as much as he normally does because of the easy matchup, and he doesn't have to do a lot. And I don't want to count him as a passer. So I'm going to say Stafford for floor and safety. If you need a 30-point game out of your quarterback because you're a big underdog, then I think you look at Taysom Hill and say, okay, well, I might get a 10, but I might get a 30. And I think that's where Taysom Hill lies. It's very, very wild card with him. But Stafford, at least you know what you're getting this week. And then the matchup doesn't scare me with Arizona. They're very good, but they're divisional opponents. They played a few weeks ago. So I think the game plan, at least they're able to correct some things. Another question or two on Instant. I'll come back to YouTube and Twitter, everyone. MG87SS, Jamar Chase, Mike Evans, or Javonte. Oh, you got a good problem. I like Mike Evans this week. No Tre'Davious White. They have no answer for him, and they can't double him up because you got Chris Godwin, you got Gronkowski. There's too much to worry about. And so I don't think a team's going to say, well, Mike Evans is the guy we have to stop, because as soon as you do that, you're leaving something else vacated, and Brady's just going to kill you there. And Jamar Chase, he's been finally, after that great start, like all the other receivers are making the big plays, the two high shells in the league, two high safeties, they're taking away the big play guys. And I think Jamar Chase, we've seen that once he was recognized, the league said, oh, this guy's the guy we got to stop. He went the route of the rest of them. So Javonte Williams is a great play this week. I think, Mike Evans has floor a lot of low floor because somebody don't get tired, but I think he has to in this game. I think against Buffalo, at home, they're going to throw a lot. So to me, it's Mike Evans, and it's not really that close. We know that Javonte and Jamar Chase can have a blow-up game. We understand that. I think Mike Evans has a higher floor than both of them, and he has an equivalent ceiling, and that's why we go with Mike Evans here. All right. You're welcome, Mr. Imac. All right, I'm going to go back to Twitter and YouTube. Iron Eddie. Good. No McKissick. Yeah, McKissick concussion. That's a big boost for Antonio Gibson. I know we did see Wendell Smallwood involved as a receiving back, but I still think in this week you're going to see Gibson with at least 5 targets and some rushing work. Looks great. And remember, those came in late. You definitely, if you're in a deep league and you need like a desperation dart throw at flex or running back, Corey Clement of the Dallas Cowboys. Zeke's playing hurt. I know they didn't want to give him a full load of work, especially knowing playoffs are coming up. And Clement's going to be involved. And the defense always has to worry about their passing attack. Clement can catch some screen passes and do pretty well. So, So I think that's what you got to look at there. All right. If anybody sees any other crazy inactives, please let me know. TJ Hawkins is the late game. It's 3 o'clock. So if you got TJ Hawkins, and you can make your decision early. Iron Eddie, full PPR. You need 2, Michelle, Hubbard, or Wilson Jr. So the problem with Michelle is we expect he's going to play. That's our expectation. Now, do they dump him on the close contact list later today? Don't know. If it happens, we're stuck. So Michelle's the guy for sure. And I don't know if you have a roster spot, but if you had a problem with Sony Michel, Mekhi Sargent would be the player to add because they don't have anybody else. Now, other than that, I'm a little worried about Hubbard because he's going to split with Amir Abdullah, and Cam Newton is going to take a lot of the running game. So Hubbard, to me, isn't the same play he was earlier in the season, and I don't think Cam Newton's looking to screen the ball to Chuba Hubbard. I think it'd be more likely if you're going to throw it when Amir Abdullah's on the field. So I'm going to go with Jeff Wilson here. Wilson should get a lot of work, so he should be fine. So I'm going to say Wilson and Michelle, but if you're at all nervous about Michelle being dumped on the COVID list as close contact, you think it would have been done already, then you would play Hubbard. But to me, it'd be a fairly easy one in my mind. Ryan, got to pick 2 of Debo, Lockett, Sony, Michelle. If Debo's on the field, you got to play him. I mean, he is an elite superstar right now, and they get him the ball in such creative and unique ways that his bust potential is so low. But I mean, his upside is so massive. You got to go to him. Now, Tyler Lockett. So Houston is they're number 27 against wide receiver 2s. So you can definitely attack them. However, Houston has a decent pressure rate. I think they're top 10 or top 11, and Seattle doesn't protect very well, and their right tackle, Brandon Shell's out. So then the deep passes may not materialize. So here's what I'll say. Debo for sure. As long as you're comfortable with Michelle not going on the COVID list, Michelle is your safe floor play. He should have a good game here. Arizona is not as good against the run as they were very early in the season. They're more middling now. So Michelle be your safe, solid, strong play. If you got to swing for defense, Lockett can get 150 yards and 2 touchdowns because that's the nature of his game. Otherwise, it's Michelle and Debo. Swing for defense, sit Michelle, played Lockett. That's the way I would go with that. All right. Nick, MVS or Jalen Guyton? That's a good one. Well, MVS has seen targets the last 2 games. He's got a 10 and maybe a 7. I don't remember the second one, but he's getting targets. The Bears are very attackable. And so I think based on these 2 players, I got to go with MVS because they both have dart throw appeal to them. But MVS has had that role now a couple weeks. And it seems like he's moved past Lazard in terms of the receiving role. And I trust Aaron Rodgers, even with the toe injury, I think he should be fine. Now, Guyton's a fine play as well, but I don't know if they're going to just in the passing game. They might, with Keenan Allen, they might just divert to Austin Eckler more in the screen game. Guyton has the advantage of most likely Mike Williams will see James Bradbury, which means Guyton would have a good matchup with Dante Jackson on the other side is out. So it would be a good matchup for him. but I'm going to trust the recent targets of MVS and make that the reason why. If you have a gut feel on it, go with it because it's that way. MVS always has floor. All right, Iron Eddie, Julio or Boyd? Look, at this point, I'm going to say this. Julio seems healthy. They waited. They held him out. They brought him back. My guess is he's got to be fine. It's as good of a matchup as he's going to get. Jacksonville is number 31 against wide receiver ones and wide receiver twos. Tyler Boyd is very game plan specific. I think this is a game the 49ers are tough on the run, but they're easy to pass it. I think the outside receivers can really get going here. I don't think they have to funnel the slot on purpose. So to me, I'm going to say Julio here. Boyd's floor is low too, but I think they need to get something going in Tennessee, and I think Julio is going to be part of that. If you have a gut feel, go with it, but otherwise I would say Julio there. Scott Lynn, you got Mooney or Sutton. Sutton, it's just the targets of production haven't been there. It's been real problematic. Now, they could get there this week. They're not going to see much of a pass rush from Detroit, but they're probably going to lead the game, and they're not going to have to throw much. So if Sutton doesn't get it done early, he may not get it done at all. Mooney, we know, is going to see targets. We don't like the matchup with Green Bay, but we like that Allen Robinson's back because Green Bay has to worry about him, even though he's not producing. They understand who Allen Robinson is. So Mooney's going to have a better floor, and I think Mooney has a similar ceiling. So I think the better floor is why you play Mooney over him. All right, let's go back to Insta, see if we have some questions here. And Jimmy B, you got Shep. I'm going to assume that means Sterling Shepard or Guyton. So Sterling Shepard at least is healthy. We love that. And in the matchup, well, let me check. I'm going to check one thing on the slot there. So Sterling Shepard, LA Chargers are number 6 against the slot. So that's not good for him. Guyton, I do like, you probably heard me say a minute ago, the fact that Mike Williams probably sees James Bradbury and then Dante Jackson is out on the other corner side. So Guyton's going to have a favorable matchup. I don't know how many targets he gets, but I don't know how many targets Shepard gets. And with Mike Glennon throwing the ball, that's not helpful. So I think here, I can't say Shepard has the normal floor that he has. He normally has a great floor. I can't say that right now because of who he's facing and the quarterback he has. So I think Jalen Guyton has to at least have a reasonable floor, but I think Guyton has a better ceiling. Now, we know Shepard could go for 9 catches for 90 yards. We understand who he is. I just don't think with the way LA defends it and with Mike Glennon, I don't think it's reasonable. So that's why I would say Guyton. If you have a gut feel with that one, go with that one as well. Got one more Insta question here. MG87. Evans, Chase. I think I answered that one. Okay. I went with Mike Evans on that because Tre'Davious White is out for the Bills. And I think that they can't roll coverage to Mike Evans because you got Chris Godwin and Rob Gronkowski to worry about. And so Mike Evans is in a great spot here. And, you can't focus to take him out. That is a misappropriation of a limited defense. You're welcome, Jimmy B. So that's the way we'll go. Chase obviously has a high ceiling, but Evans has the same ceiling. Chase's floor is much lower this week, I believe, than Evans because they're going to throw the ball. I don't think this is a scenario where the Bucs are coming in, hey, we're going to run. They're at home. They light it up at home. Javante's a strong play too, but we don't know what the split with him and Melly Gordon is going to be, and that's where the problem comes. We don't know if it's going to be back to that 50-50 workload. All right. Boogie B, Westbrook or Reynolds? Yeah, so Westbrook or Keeney. So, yeah, it's a tough call. Julio Jones is back. Their tight end's been playing well. And ultimately, I think that Tennessee leads in this game. And I think they can run a lot. I don't think they need Westbrook or Keeney to be a big factor. Josh Reynolds, Detroit's going to have to throw. And I think the game could be out of hand. And Denver could really just back off defensively in the second half. So I think I like Josh Reynolds. He has an equivalent floor. But I think he's had 2 decent games in a row. And Jared Goff played with him in L.A., which helps a lot too. So that's why I'm going to go with Josh Reynolds. All right, Andy. Let's see. There's Jamar. Yeah, so Jefferson's a really good runner. He's shown it in limited opportunities. He looks like he definitely can play. He's going to split work with Godwin Igwe. Let's say that out there in the early morning still. So I think he's a good play, but I think in this game, they're going to trail. I think that Detroit has too many injuries. I guess they got COVID running through. They got obviously you mentioned Jefferson, the 2 starting running backs are out. Hawkinson's not expected to play. Their center's out. And so I think he'll be okay. I don't think there's a lot of ceiling here. I think Denver's going to be fine against it. Now, Denver's a bottom rung run defense, but I don't think that Detroit's going to be in a position to be able to run the ball a lot. They may try to run late, but I don't think that their personnel is going to allow them to do very much with it. And that's where the problem comes in. So I think he's a solid flex play this week. And depending on the other options, we look at it that way. One more Insta question. I'll come back to Twitter and YouTube. Statsman22, James Conner, Aaron Jones, Josh Jacobs for their production today. Josh Jacobs, he's got a great matchup, and they're throwing him the ball a lot, and Jalen Richard's on the COVID list, and we know Kenyon Drake's out for the season. So those targets are like invaluable. So I think Jacobs has the highest floor of the three. He's going to get you a lot of floor points. James Conner does not have a great matchup here. The Rams are good against the run. He's going to need touchdown or touchdowns to come through, which he can get. But Connor's a little more shaky news. I have Jacobs number 1 this week, Conner number 2, Aaron Jones, just because A.J. Dillon is getting so dang much of the work here. And, the Bears are reasonable against the run. They're 18th. And it's just that Aaron Jones hasn't been used well this year. They have not weaponized him. And so the best player of the three is Aaron Jones, but I'm going to rank them Jacobs, Conner, and Jones. Until Jones, like I said, I don't know, he's getting that role he needs back. It's not there right now. All right, and one more before I come over. No, I think I said to come over right now, and then I'll come back to Insta. John Simmons, Julio, MVS, or Allen Robinson. So Julio seems to be healthy. They rest him. They kept him out. It sounds like they're ready to roll with him. That's what we got to say. We got to say, let's go with Julio. They're going to have, they're going to pass early, I think. They're playing Jacksonville. Jacksonville is number 31 against wide receiver 1s and wide receiver 2s. So I think they want to get Julio going. They're going to be able to run a lot, but I think Julio gets at least 5 targets here. MVS, it's really hit or miss. He's gotten good targets the last 2 games. We can't look away from that at all. But, with him, he always falls off at a moment's notice. They just go away from him. And if they get a lead, they might run the ball more with Dillon and Jones. So, and Allen Robinson just hasn't – if we took Allen Robinson's name away from his numbers – he's unplayable. And I think, especially coming off the injury now, I think we have less confidence in him. And Green Bay is good against the pass. So I think it's Julio Jones, John. All right, Omar. Should I start Mike Williams since Allen is out? Well, Williams is going to get targets, but he's probably going to have James Bradbury on him, and that's not a deal breaker. I mean, last week they finally started throwing 50-50 balls back to Mike Williams, which is why last week we recommended, shying away from him against better matchups, other fantasy matchups, because they weren't throwing the 50-50 balls. But they threw like 3 to him last week, and he hits 100 yards. I think they have to throw him the ball this week. And even with Bradbury on him, I think Mike Williams still should get you 70 yards. So, I mean, and they're not built to run the ball. They're built to screen that. They'll run a little bit. But I told some of my friends last week that asked about the gambling aspect of how do the Chargers run the ball. They go, they're going to run. No, they're going to throw. Because that's what they have to do. They're not built as a run team. So, yeah, I think Mike Williams is a reasonable play. I think his ceiling is down a bit because of Bradbury, but I think his floor is better than usual for sure. All right, let's see what we got here. All right, we got a bunch still here. It's good. All right, Scott Lynn, Aaron Jones or Dillon or Jamar Jefferson I got a lot of orders here, huh? You need 3 in a standard league of all these. All right. Jeff Wilson's got to be in there, because he's going to get the volume, and he'll get something from it. If they get goal line carries, he could score there. Barkley, I talked down a bit earlier, but he's going to get work. Barkley will get work. He hasn't been good, but his floor has been good. So you got to go with Barkley because he's going to see touches, whether it's – he had 5 catches in garbage time last week. Gave him 6 for the game. So you got to go with Wilson and Barkley. Your third one, here's how I'll frame the third one. If you need floor for your third one, you got a solid 8 to 10 points. You're going to laugh. I'm going to say A.J. Dillon because they probably played their like 12-point favorites. They're probably play with a lead. Dillon's probably going to run the ball late, probably going to get in the end zone. So Dillon's your safer play. But if you need 20 points out of your running back, Aaron Jones always has that game. He has a 4-touchdown game in him. And, so if you're playing for that, and honestly, if the floor doesn't bother you on the third one, then I think it's Aaron Jones because that upside. I don't think Dillon has nearly that upside. So I think that's the route we got to go there. Osman, Ty Johnson or Daryl. I think I may have answered this one earlier. So we're just going to say that I think it was if a floor play is Ty Johnson, should get you 5 points or so, should be okay with that. If you need 15, you got to go Daryl Williams because even though he's playing back up to CEH, he's involved. His floor is lower. But Ty Johnson with Tevin Coleman out should get you enough targets to come through catching the ball. Delroy, 2 running back spots to fill. Penny, Hunt, and Daryl Williams. So Kareem Hunt, we got to go with him. I know he was bad 2 weeks ago against the Ravens. At least the Browns are coming off a bye. game planning for the same team they played. Got to think he's a week healthier, 2 weeks healthier, because he's going to bye. So I think we got to go with Hunt there. Daryl Williams in that timeshare. He's on, last week he did okay with it, but we can't count on that week to week. CEH is the lead. And, Penny, Pete Carroll loves him. He's going to use them. The matchup is good against Houston. Houston's a bottom 5 run defense. So I think we sit Daryl Williams this week. I think that's the way we go there. And let me come back to Insta for a second here, and then I will go back to the Twitter and YouTube questions. All right. Akers Pujan, Powan, Asian. I'm sorry, I can't say that so well. Kamara or Javonte Williams. Got to be Kamara 100%. He's healthy. Easiest matchup in the world, both rushing and receiving. Kamara could get 40 points today. He may not, but he could. Javonte Williams doesn't have that because he's still splitting work. MG87, Javonte or Chubb. You know what? I expect Melvin Gordon's back in an equal role. And given that, and I know Javonte has a great match, but I know last week he totally hung up a big number. But, man, Nick Chubb's playing the same team he played 2 weeks ago, and they could stop him again. They shut him down, 8 for 16. Could happen. So, but, man, stopping Nick Chubb 2 games in a row, I don't know. Especially with the game plan. They probably saw on film exactly what the Ravens were doing. My guess is that they have a plan for that. And here's what I'll say. Javonte has a higher floor. Because we saw Nick Chubb's floor last week, 2 weeks ago against Baltimore. So that floor is that. But I think Chubb has a vastly higher ceiling because Javonte splitting work cuts away from his ceiling. So if you need 20 points out of your running back, then it's got to be Nick Chubb. If you can get by when you want a solid 9 or 10, then Javonte is probably your guy. But I would find it hard to sit Chubb after that bad game. Statsman, you're welcome, man. All right, let's see what else we got here. Truly epic. Flex one, MVS, OBJ, or Jeff Wilson, or Ayuk. Yeah, good problem to have, right? Ayuk's running so many routes, and he's on the field over 90% of the time. And even with Debo back, I don't think Debo's 100%, but I think Debo's going to draw a lot of coverage, and that's going to make life a little easier for Ayuk. It's an easy matchup for Kittle, too. I think this game could shoot out. And I think, to me, that makes me like Ayuk. Jeff Wilson has a decent floor, but he hasn't looked good this year. He's back from the injury, but he doesn't look like what he did last year. And the matchup isn't great. OBJ, boom bust for sure. Arizona gets some heat in that, but they may have some scheme play set up here. So MVS MVS getting targets the last 2 games. Not going to argue with that at all. But I think with the group of players you have, I don't think we can reasonably put MVS in with them and just say, yeah, he could have a big game. Yes, but his consistent floor is too low. So I'm going to say this. Ayuk has good floor, good ceiling. He's the player I would use. If you need a 20-plus point game, the most likely to hit over 20 would be OBJ because I think that they may have to score a lot of points. But ultimately, I probably trust Ayuk the best of them. But if you need to risk some floor for some ceiling, then maybe OBJ. Ayuk could have the same ceiling, though. Ayuk could go off. But so that's the way we'll look at that one. Delroy, Herbert or Taysom Hill today. So in this one, Justin Herbert's going to have Mike Williams probably on James Bradbury. That's going to be a little bit tough. No Keenan Allen. They'll probably dump to Eckler a lot. They'll have other targets to go to. Herbert is way more volatile than usual today. I think there's some volatility here. And the Giants are a good pass defense. Believe it or not, they're like 8th in pass DVOA. Taysom Hill, the worry here is if it's an Alvin Kamara game, the Jets are horrible against the run and the pass. If Kamara gets going, it's possible he doesn't stop going. And that could hurt Taysom Hill's usually sky-high floor. That said, that makes Hill more volatile than you. Usually has a great floor. Normally I'm like, when you have a guy that's volatile with Taysom Hill, it's like, yeah, Taysom Hill, the floor is beautiful. This week I'm not sure because it could be the Kamara game. So I am going to probably go with Herbert here, hoping he gets use out of Guyton, and then maybe even Jared Cook pops up more this week. But Hill worries me because of the Alvin Kamara factor this week. If you have a gut feel, go with it. But I'll say 60% to 40% Herbert on this one. Like I said, normally I would go Hill, but the matchup, I just think it could be too good for Richie said Herbert, but I'm not sure what that means. Okay. Rick, which Detroit running back, if you had to? Derrick Henry. So I think Jamar Jefferson is a good talent who slipped in the draft. But I think when we've seen him play a little bit, we see the flashes of why some viewed him as a good prospect. Godwin Igwebuike was a converted defender, moved over, and he's looked good. And now he had that one big play that people will remember. He scored a touchdown a number of weeks ago. But I think Jamar Jefferson is the player to have. I think he's more likely to be able to continue a sustained role over a couple of weeks if he's needed to, if Swift hits the IR. That's the player that I would recommend her. Laura and Jim Cooperman, Penny or Chenault. You know, Chenault is such a low floor and low ceiling. Penny has to have an equal floor. But Pete Carroll wants to use him in the matchup. It's good. So I think that we look at Penny this week and we say, you know what? They both have floor, but Penny might have ceiling. He can break a long run. Chenault hasn't shown any propensity to break a big play, so I'm going with Penny here. Got an Insta question. Ricardo, Taysom Hill or Dak Prescott? Got to go Dak here. I was saying a minute ago, I'm very worried that there are more scenarios than usual for Taysom having a rare floor game because Kamara just gets going so well. They may not need Taysom to run. Dak has a perfect game setup. Washington's nails against the run, but they're terrible. They're like 30th in DVOA against the pass, and Dallas could just decimate them there. And the pass rush, they lost so many players there, and the Dallas line is fine. So I got to go Dak Prescott fairly easily there. All right, let's see what we got here. You got Sleek next. You got Moreau versus Hooper, Freeman. I'm going to say Moreau. Moreau. And last week I avoided Moreau. Didn't like the matchup at Washington. I like the matchup this week with the Chiefs. The Chiefs are closer to average DVOA against tight ends, and Moreau will be needed because the Chiefs are going to score some points. And Hooper, you know what? Yeah, I know they're out. The other two tight ends are out, and Njoku's out, and Harrison Bryant are out. I get that. But there's no guarantee Hooper gets more than 5 targets, and that could be an upside for him. Moreau is a very talented receiver, and we know the Raiders in their offense, they made the tight end a part of it. Now it's because it's Darren Waller, but still those routes and those play concepts are still there, and Moreau can convert those. I'm going to say Moreau has both a higher floor and a higher ceiling. That's why I'm going to go with him. Freeman versus Ayuk. Freeman's had a good floor. Like 58 plus yards, I think, in maybe 5 games in a row, and he's gotten in the end zone quite a bit. I think he's a good floor play. And I think against Cleveland's been middling against the run. They were better earlier in the season. They're not as good now. Ayuk has a similar floor. He runs over 90% of the plays, and his route participation is high. And Debo's back. I don't think he's 100%. So I'm going to say this. Freeman is your safe play. You want 10 points out of your position here. You go with him. If you need like 18, Freeman's not your guy anymore. Ayuk is, you're risking a little more of a floor, maybe a 6 or 7 point floor, but I think you got that higher ceiling. And so I think I'd base it on that. That's how I would rank those out. All right. Michael Brown, pick 2. Zeke, Javonte, Monty, and Dylan. We got to go Monty because Green Bay is like bottom 5 against running backs, and then running backs as receivers, and he plays like 80% of the snaps, so we got to go that route. Since you have other good options, I'm going to lean away from Zeke. Washington is top 4 against the run. And I don't think Dallas is going to try to push Zeke too hard. The knee isn't right. So could he get a touchdown? Yes. That's always on the table, but I think that's what we'd be banking on. Whereas Javonte Williams is probably splitting work still with Melvin Gordon, but it's an elite matchup, and they should be leading. So I'm going to say Monty and Javonte here. I think they both have requisite floor and ceiling here. Other plays are good. If you have a gut feeling on it, definitely go ahead. And Randy, you have hasty roster and non-PPR, but won't start him with Wilson. Yep. We did. Yeah, you know what? Yes, I would do that because I would imagine Eli Mitchell's injuries aren't serious. I imagine he would be back next week. And then if he is back down the stretch, Hasty's kind of a wasted roster spot. Whereas Penny gets hot. Pete Carroll loves him. We know he could get hurt the second he touches the ball, but if he doesn't, if he's on the field, Carroll loves him and he is talented. So I would say so. David Johnson out on the COVID list. Oh, thanks for sharing that, Randy. Oh, look at that. Wow. Rex Burkhead, I know he's going to get some touches. Seattle's number 32 against receiving back. So if they decide to throw him the ball, he could come through here. Seattle's tough against the run. But if anybody's like desperate for flex, then you can go ahead and go with Rex Burkhead if you're really desperate. Guys, is there a world? Yeah, there's a world you play Jeff Wilson over Zeke. There is a world because if Zeke doesn't get a touchdown, he's not getting you a lot of yards. I don't think he's hit 70 total yards in 5 or 6 games. The knee is clearly not right. He'll play. I think Corey Clement will be involved, even though Pollard's out. So I don't think that Zeke's going to play. He's going to get all the care. I don't think that they can't responsibly give Zeke the ball. They could do it, but they couldn't responsibly give him the ball that much. So, yeah, there's definitely a world where you play Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson has a similar floor. I think Jeff Wilson may actually have a higher ceiling than Zeke, unless Zeke gets a couple goal line scores, and we can't predict those. That would be it. All right, I'm going to get through these questions quick here because I got to go to another show in a bit. So, John, you need one, Connor, Dillon, or Robinson. I think James Robinson has the best opportunity here as a runner and receiver against Tennessee. So I think he could get some things done here. Tennessee's middling against receiving backs. That helps Robinson. Connor has a tougher matchup. He'll need touchdowns, which he can always get. Dillon has a fine matchup as well, but I think it's going to be predicated on them winning big. I think Robinson is the safest floor of the group, and he has a better ceiling, I think, than both. So that's why I'd go him. Fungas, Michelle or Saquon? Michelle is the better play as long as you're not worried that he gets put on the close contact list, which I don't think he will at this point. So Michelle has a very good matchup. Arizona is now middling against the run, and they're going to be more concerned with the pass. So I think he's in a great spot. Saquon just has not been producing. He had 5 catches on the last drive, last game, which bailed him out a little bit, but he's still not playing well. So I'd say Michelle. Truly epic. Yeah, Burkhead, again, the receiving back matchup is really good there. Brienne, I'm not sure what that is, but hi. Anthony, Saquon, Mixon, Evans, Diggs, DJ Moore, pick 3. All right. So Mike Evans and Diggs are automatics here because they both could go absolutely off, and their floor should be remarkably high here. Mixon, look, if he's been sick all week and I got these other good options, he doesn't have a good rushing matchup. San Francisco's top 3 against the run. So I'm going to say DJ Moore's going to be my 3rd. DK just hasn't been getting it done. 60 yards is his biggest game in like 5 weeks. And that's the way we're going to go. I'm going to go DJ Moore. Saquon hasn't been getting it done. Favorite props today. Conan, I can give these. Mahomes over 284 passing yards. Tyreek Hill over 74 receiving yards. Prescott over 287 passing yards. And Cam Newton over 30 rushing yards. Those. Susan, you got full PPR, Rex or Jeff Wilson. I got to go with Wilson because Rex had a similar opportunity last week, and they barely got it done. So I got to say Jeff Wilson because he is like guaranteed work in a good running scheme. They're going to use him. If they get near the goal, he'll get the ball there. And this is my last question I think I'm taking from this one. Susan, you got full PPR, Wilson, Burkhead, Johnson out, or Moreau or Schultz. Okay, so Dalton Schultz is probably going to continue to lose work now that all the 3 Dallas receivers are healthy. He's great when they're missing at least one. Moreau should be a big part of the game plan this week. Washington's very good against tight ends, which is why we sat Moreau last week. Schultz gets that matchup, but now again, he's going to lose targets to the 3 receivers. I think Moreau gets a lot of targets against Kansas City, which is a better matchup. So we're going to go Moreau. And then we just said a moment ago, we were going to go with Jeff Wilson over that. All right, everybody, have a good day and good